Today we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing integers. This is so much easier than adding and subtracting them. Okay, the rules for multiplying integers. The product, which means the answer to multiplication, of two integers that have the same sign, both positive, both negative, is always positive. The product of two integers with different signs, one positive, one negative, is always negative. And remember that the product of 0 and any integer, regardless if it's positive or negative, is always 0. Let's take look at a couple of examples. Number 1, positive 2 times negative 6. Sign first, okay? Positive times negative, they're different, so my answer is going to be negative. 2 times 6 is 12. You'll get the math right, just make sure you do the signs first. Number 2, a positive times a negative is a negative. 4 times 3 is 12. Number 3, positive times a negative, they're different, is a negative. 7 times 2 is 14. Number 4, a positive times a positive, they're the same. That's a positive. 3 times 4 is 12. Number 5, a negative times a negative, they're both the same, so that's positive, and 5 times 3 is 15. And number 6, any number times 0 is 0. Okay. Let's try a couple. Negative 5 times 2 is negative times a positive, negative. 5 times 2 is 10. Number 2, a negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 2 is 6. Number 3, positive times a negative is a negative. 3 times negative, and 3 times 6 is 18. Number 4, positive times a positive is a positive, and 7 times 2 is 14. Number 5, negative times negative is a positive, and 8 times 1 is 8. And number 6, a negative 6 times 0, anything times 0 is 0. Okay, now we can multiply a couple of numbers. Negative 3 times 5 times a negative 4. Well, negative times a positive is a negative. 3 times 5 is 15, and then multiply that by a negative 4. A negative times a negative is a positive, and 15 times 4 is 60. Look at this one. Negative 4 times 8 times negative 2. A negative times a positive is a negative. 4 times 8 is 32. Then multiply that by a negative 2. A negative times a negative is a positive, and 32 times 2 is 64. Over here, 6 times negative 3 times 5. 6 times negative 3, a positive times a negative is a negative, and 6 times 3 is 18, and then multiply that by 5. A negative times a positive is a negative, and 18 times 5 is 90. And number 9, negative 7 times negative 14 times 0. Again, anything times 0 is 0. Dividing integers, same exact rules as multiplying. The quotient of two integers with the same sign is positive, both negative. Okay, so if you're dividing two numbers and they have the same sign, your answer is positive. All right, the quotient of two integers that have different signs is a negative. Division by 0, that means when you're dividing by 0, you can divide into 0, that's fine, that will be 0. But you can't divide by 0. That's called undefined. Look at example 8. Negative 40 divided by 5. Again, sign first. Negative divided by positive is a negative. 40 divided by 5 is 8. Number 9. Negative 10 divided by negative 2. Negative divided by a negative, the signs are the same, is a positive. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. And number 10. Positive 16 divided by a negative 2. My signs are different, so my answer is a negative, and 16 divided by 2 is 8. Let's try a couple. Number 10, negative 32 divided by 8. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. 32 divided by 8 is 4. Number 11, negative 48 divided by negative 6. My signs are the same, so my answer is a positive. 48 divided by 6 is 8. And number 12, negative 56 divided by negative 7. My signs are the same, so this is going to be a positive, and 56 divided by 7 is 8. Notice I always do the sign first, so I don't drop it. Number 13, find the average of positive 4, negative 3, negative 5, positive 2, and a negative 8. Remember, in averages, add them up and divide by the number of numbers you have. So I'm going to add up 4 plus negative 3 plus negative 5 plus 2 plus negative 8, and I am going to divide this by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you remember, anytime we have a list of numbers, add up all the ones that are the same. Negative 3, negative 5, and negative 8. Negative 3 plus negative 5 is a negative 8, plus a negative 8 is a negative 16. 2 that I'm going to add a positive 4 and a positive 2 is a positive 6. Divide that by 5. Negative 16 plus a positive 6 is a negative 10 divided by 5. A negative divided by a positive is a negative, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. And there you go. Good luck.